Are you someone who obsesses over mistakes? Do you replay failures over and over in your head? Then you're in the right place, because in this video, I'll explain 3 reasons why we can't let go of our most embarrassing and hurtful experiences. And if you stay tuned to the end, I'll hook you up with some resources on how to stop obsessing over your mistakes. The first reason why we can't let go is that our brain is trying to protect us. When we make a mistake or we fail or sin, we experience emotion. Often it's guilt or shame. It can also be anger or fear, heartbreak, or some other painful feeling. For example, you had a horrible argument with your sister and she's cut you out of her life. The things she said hurt you. You got pretty nasty too. The more you think about it, you feel angry and embarrassed for what you said about her son. So you talk about the argument over and over to whomever will listen, defending yourself and mentally rehearsing what you would say differently next time. Your brain knows you're hurting, so it tries to figure out how to protect you from that bad experience happening again. It's going to keep going over it until it figures out a solution. It's how God created our brain, to help keep us safe. The second reason we obsess over our mistakes is because we need to know we're accepted and loved. It's hard to think of ourselves as flawed or imperfect, even though we prove it over and over again. So we hold on to the false belief that if we get a do-over, somehow we can get it 100% right. We replay scenarios until we come out a better, smarter, more loving, and lovable human being. That way, we won't have to face rejection or disapproval. As you're obsessing in the self-defeating loop of perfectionism, you can prove the argument with your sister wasn't your fault. She'll understand you were only trying to help when you called her son selfish. You picture how she'll gratefully tell you, you're right. Then you can be reassured that you weren't out of line and she still loves you. Now let's get to the third reason for obsessing over mistakes. It's that we have unfinished business with other people and with God. Our conscience will bring an experience to mind when our behavior is out of line with God's will for our life. I remember a time when I confronted someone very aggressively. It wasn't a physical confrontation, but I was disrespectful and harsh. To this day, I don't regret the reason for the confrontation, but I know I treated her wrong. Several years later, I was still consumed by that day, replaying the conversation with my husband, my friends, defending myself, mentally putting words in her mouth so the outcome would be better. No matter what I pretended, though, I always ended up embarrassed and unsettled by a guilty conscience. Here's the thing. We're created with a conscience to alert us when we're out of alignment with God. Replaying that argument was how I tried to find a way to justify my behavior. One of the things that I love about Jesus is his patience. He can impress on me a sense of guilt through my conscience. Then he waits until I finally humble myself, admit I'm wrong, and ask for forgiveness. In the meantime, Jesus never condemns me for what I do, and he never stops loving me. If you're getting value from this video, will you hit the like button below and share it with someone who needs to watch it too? Now, you've probably figured out by now that I obsess over my mistakes, including that argument with my friend. Except, I've got to confess to you, it wasn't a friend. It was the pastor of a church I attended. Still, it happened 5 years ago. Why couldn't I let it go? Here's what I've learned about applying the 3 reasons we just covered. Reason number 1, my brain was trying to figure out how to protect me from repeating my mistake. I disrespected someone God had placed in authority over me. This was serious business. By replaying the fight with my pastor, maybe I could figure out how the conversation got so out of control. Why I thought I had the right to challenge her authority. If I could imagine saying things differently, in a calm way, instead of how harsh I was, there could have been a better outcome. Now, what about the second reason I was replaying my mistakes? The need for reassurance of my value and worth. This doesn't have so much to do with how another person feels about us. It's more about how we see ourselves and whether we believe we have a sense of value and worth. that we're worthy of being loved and capable of loving other people. I gotta tell you, there wasn't much about what I said and how I said it to my pastor that was respectful and loving. A seed of doubt was planted in my mind that I am a disrespectful and unloving person who doesn't deserve respect or love. No wonder I kept replaying the conversation to prove that I'm not as bad as I think I am. The third reason I was obsessing over my mistake is because I had unfinished business with my pastor and with God. That wasn't too hard to figure out. Jesus tells us to treat others with love, gentleness, and respect. That was far different than the way I treated my pastor. As much as I didn't want to humble myself, you know how hard that is, I knew I owed her an apology, and my mind just wasn't going to be at peace until I took care of that. But that wasn't the end of it. I disrespected my pastor, and when I did that, I also disrespected God and His choice for my spiritual guide at that time in my life. Up to that point, I had not submitted to God's authority. He wasn't going to let me go until I set it right with Him, confessed my sin, and asked for His forgiveness. Are you obsessing over a particular mistake or failure? If the answer is yes, do you know why? How might these 3 reasons apply? Number 1, you want to protect yourself from repeated failure. Number 2, you need reassurance of your value and worth. Or number 3, you have unfinished business with God and maybe someone else. If you've been following along with me, I can assure you that you just took a big step in letting your worst moments go. If you want to go further and learn more about how to put your mistakes and failures behind you, check out these videos. In the meantime, I hope you'll call me my mentor Jane on the journey to a good life.